It's 1957. The average new car costs $2,100. Gas is 29 cents a gallon. The average house costs $18,000, and minimum wage is $1 an hour. We've experienced the birth of rock and roll, and we're listening to Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry and Fats Domino. It's the golden age of television, and if you've got one, you're watching I Love Lucy and Ed Sullivan and the $64,000 question. Unless you live in Campbell River. TV reception hadn't yet arrived in Campbell River, so a group of locals got together to correct that situation. 1957 saw the birth of CRTV, the community-owned cable television system that, against all odds, has grown into one of a kind. It's a unique, cooperative cable television system that is owned by the people it serves. I'm going to take this old girl down to Dell's for a burger and shake, while you sit back and enjoy the celebration of 50 years from the beginning of CRTV, Campbell River's community-owned cable television system.
To introduce the beginning of CRTV brings in a whole pile of different environments. And I think the most, probably the most important thing to realize about the creation of CRTV as such was that at the time Campbell River Television was envisaged and it started to gain some footholds. It was largely because there was no television available in Campbell River. Anybody that could look south, that had a view to the south, as it were, down the strait, was able to get some very snowy pictures. And through that snow, every so often, with the music that was coming through or the audio, if you were lucky, someone you recognized, such as Lawrence Welk or something, might flash through the screen for a few minutes, and you could recognize that, yeah, by golly, there was something there. But by the time you started moving around the general area of Campbell River, there just wasn't any television reception. But like anything else, when somebody gets a little bit of something, they want a whole pile more.
Because everybody wanted TV, and they couldn't get it worth a damn with an antenna.
Of course, all the fellows in the town site were interested in getting television, so they had to go on a scouting mission to see where they could get the best reception. That's
about where it started. There was a group of guys that got together and started looking for better television signals. Logically, more height, more room for bigger antennas, bigger antenna farms, so to speak, led us up to General Hill and eventually up to the highest point on General Hill, which is Elk Falls Lookout, at an elevation of approximately 1,000 feet above sea level.
You could drive up there to the top at that time. And they had a pretty reasonable signal from up there. They just went out there on foot and they hiked the mountains and they tried by guessing by darn, and they put up antennas and feelers and wherever else they used to get signals. And they just went from there, and they've accomplished what they've accomplished. And it's just a thing of pride to think that they have done that. That's how I feel.
Again, we have to then look, having found the signal, at not only a way of getting the signal down to the consumer in Campbell River, but a way of finding the money with which to do it. And this brought in one of the really interesting things about the association, the way it was formed and why it was formed. And at that point in time, we needed about approximately $25,000 in order to interest the banks. What happened in order to raise this money? $125 bonds were issued. Now, the way they were issued was that people went down to the Canadian Bank of Commerce, put their $125 in there on deposit, and with the idea that if we got reasonably close to the $27,000, that they would be issued bonds that bore 3% interest on them, and they could turn those bonds back in again when we passed their door for television. This was the feed money. we did arrive at about $20,000, and a couple of people who later on played a rather significant role in Campbell River Television put up $2,000 or $4,000 in terms of these bonds to raise the amount of money, which at that time interested the banks to carry us through when this money was gone.
There were many who put their money down long before they got anything for it.
And when the system started to gain some inertia, it became clear that they were going to need somebody to pick it up with some degree of electrical knowledge. Young enough to be stupid enough to be able to climb poles, which I fit into quite nicely at that time. The first people that were subscribers was the original John Hart town site. And that was a series, I believe, of 10 homes that were constructed for the personnel that were working at the town site at the time. They were working at John Hart.
So finally they strung a cable down the mountain and down the general hill. And of course we weren't too far away from the general road, and they brought a line right there along the little lake and into our yard and hooked us up, and that's how we became the first people to have a television in the whole area.
Art was the first subscriber by virtue of the fact that he was the first house as you drove into the town site. It was built like a little bit of a horseshoe in there. The offices, by the way, were something. The first office I can remember was, I believe, a bunkhouse or a construction office, and I don't remember how it got there. Vaguely, somebody pulled it in there on the back of a flat deck truck and dropped it off approximately where Kentucky Fried Chicken is now. That area there was nothing there. And then we moved from there up to, that's right, the Marshalls. Dunk Marshall, who was a member of the board, and Smoothie Marshall, had a sporting goods shop. It was next to the pool hall. And that is approximately where the Haida Hotel is now. And on the other side of that entryway, as you go straight through the door, there was a pool hall. On the right-hand side was our office, CRTV. On the left-hand side was a barber shop. And we were there for, I can't remember, but I do vividly remember the board of directors in their chaste lounges sitting around for their board meetings. And because we got our reels of cable in wooden reels, big 1,000-foot reels of cable, and the kids had a propensity for wanting to roll them down, at that time was the main drag, and sometimes off into the salt chuck, which the Tyee Plaza, as it is now, wasn't there. We decided for safety reasons that we'd roll them into the office at night. And that became the seating arrangement for the board of directors. They were sitting on reels of cable. So then from there, we moved to the 900 block Island Highway, which is right directly across from the Beehive. And they were there until about sometime after 1966. I'd left there, but at that time the board was entertaining the construction of the then CRTV building, their first building they owned, on 11th Avenue.
The next step would be that we moved, they bought some property on 11th Avenue, and then they built that building in the studio, because we had no studio before that time. And then along come some other thoughts from, let's say, some other outside influences, maybe the CRTC. They said, well, now that you've got this audience and you've got this infrastructure, maybe you should do a few more things, hence the studio. Hence, let's do some help the community.
When we got into the new office on 11th Avenue, and particularly after got into local programming, which was required by the CRTC. Local programming was really something that Jeff Goodship wanted to do, and he wanted to tie it in with the schools, and of course the schools did eventually become part of the CRTV system and educational programming and so on.
So educational television was in fact born, the first one in Canada, in a little room, used to be the student council room on the second floor of the old junior high school building. Ed Selby ran us a cable there that fed back to CRTV's head end and the old fence. And we set up a broadcast facility. All of our programming was stuff that we videotaped off air. We set up a system wherein teachers could request a recording and a time for playback.
And in 1967, I got one period assigned to me to assist Jeff with his ETV. And I remember many a time lugging that old 1-inch reel-to-reel Sony VCR and lugging it from place to place to videotape various presentations at that time. And it was black and white, and it was aired from that room on the second floor of the old junior high.
So all the schools in the district could phone up, make arrangements with the School District 72 studio, and then they could show the program right in the school. We also were able to show the 1972 hockey when Canada played the Russians.
So 10 began here, really quite a groundbreaking time. Incidentally, it was part of what later became known as the John Young era. John kind of got the credit for the name, but there were many, many interesting innovations going on all over this school district at that time.
There was a chap by the name of Goodship. He was our television coordinator, and we worked very, very closely with CRTV to use TV as a good educational tool. And so they cooperated very, very closely with the school because it was community owned. And after all, I was principal of the senior high school, and I was also on the board of directors of CRTV. And while I didn't favor my own particular school, I favored all the schools in the district, because the schools belong to the citizens of Campbell River, just like CRTV belonged to the citizens. And so that was almost a sacred principle of community ownership.
There's been a long history of cooperation between CRTV and School District 72.
With CRTV's infrastructure on solid ground and moving in positive directions, rumor had it that several entrepreneurs had taken an interest in buying out the member-owned nonprofit association. It wasn't long before this threat of takeover became a local controversy. Even though Campbell River's TV reception was becoming clearer, memories of the details of this controversy are a bit fuzzy.
I don't know how the fear of takeover, I don't know the history of how that arrived.
I can't really say that that's something I can recall specifically about.
There was somebody, I forget who it was, but they wanted to buy the cable system.
No, I don't think there was. I think the only thing that seems to me was the fact that there was private people that wanted a piece of the pie.
I think in the past there have been attempts.
No.
Yes. There was a time when...
There was an offer.
Yes.
I don't know what led to that belief. I think there had been some kind of an attempt from, as best I remember, somebody in Powell River, or maybe it was that it had happened in Powell River. Perhaps that's what it was. But in any case, that was a strong concern from our board of directors.
CRTV was not into local origination. I felt at that time, and quite a few other people felt at that time, that it was being run for the benefit of the employees of CRTV. So I went to the bank and I got some money together, but not before I'd read the bylaws and found out that there were a number of people behind me. I could show up with a bunch of proxies, turn the meeting around, and put it up for sale. And I was prepared to buy it, and I had lots of people behind me. And so I was ready to go. So I went to the meeting, armed with these proxies, and of course, told them I had the proxies, and of course there was a great deal of sort of commotion at the head table there, and one of the chaps came down to me and asked me, you know, what the hell did I want? And I said, really what I want is what CRTV was originally set up for, and that was a community association that would represent the interests of Campbell River, not just in local rate structure, but in the involvement of this community. So why don't we just sort of get this thing going in the right direction and get into local origination? And so he said, okay, I'll talk to them about that. And he did, and give me a nod, and I got up. And so when I left, I had the assurance that they would do something about the local origination. And 2 weeks later, they changed the bylaws.
And so we moved whatever we could to make that takeover as difficult as possible. We amended the Constitution so that 95% of CRTV shareholders had to agree before it could be sold.
CRTV was firmly entrenched as a unique, locally owned cable system not beholden to big cable companies. But another storm was brewing for CRTV. With the advent of satellite TV, people elsewhere could get popular US super stations. CRTV members wanted the same. In the interest of giving their subscribers the best bang for their buck, CRTV board members made a somewhat risky decision to add what are now known as the questionable channels. This was against federal regulations at the time.
The controversy really had to do with the superstations that were coming out of the United States. WGN in Chicago, a superstation in New York, another one in Los Angeles. And they were readily picked up by anyone who had a dish. And they were being carried over the community channels in Sayward, in Port McNeill, in Port Hardy. And local people were coming to CRTV and saying, well, how come they get these channels in Sayward? How come they get them in Port Hardy? Why can't we have them?
So the Campbell River CRTV subscribers were up in arms, basically.
So at some point we had some channels that we weren't really supposed to be having on the system.
However, in our wisdom, we decided to carry 3 of them.
And the one thing was, of course, that we're a long way from Ottawa. So someone had to get up and physically appear in Campbell River to find out what was going on.
We wanted to have them. Our membership wanted to have them. But that's not the way the CRTC viewed our situation.
The board were quite determined to push this.
People didn't want to lose those channels, and we had quite a time dealing with it on the front end because it was just 8 hours a day of answering the phone because nobody wanted to lose their American satellite channels.
We carried them for some months, probably up to a year, and then we were notified by the CRTC that we were not to carry them. We were to cease and desist. Now, how the CRTC found out that we were carrying them, I have no idea.
Where they got wind of it, I don't know. Someone must have said something, but one day a gentleman from Ottawa appeared in the office downtown and introduced himself and said that he was from CRTC and he would like to have a look around.
They obviously didn't buy our argument.
I can't speak for the board, but speaking for myself, so CRTV pushed things at that time, and all credit to the board for doing so, because I think it had to be pushed and it was long overdue.
We also sought legal advice, and the legal advice we got was that we were in the wrong and we had better do what the CRTC told us.
It wasn't long before CRTC regulations changed, and CRTV was able to continue adding to its ever-expanding list of channels. Meanwhile, under the direction of the CRTC, local community TV programming was required. This, however, was an area in which CRTV came to excel, and this made CRTV more and more an integral part of the community.
Community programming was just going full steam ahead. And there was a lot of interesting things happening. In 1980, when U. Smith joined the team, lots of things started happening. And I have here a report from way back from 1981, Father then, program coordinator at that time. And in his report he says, not only has CRTV fulfilled very closely the desires and dictates of the CRTC with its local studio, but it has recently built up a recognition and renown as operating one of the most vibrant and best utilized operations in Canada. And so that really speaks well of what was happening way back in 1981 with CRTV.
I was working in community television in Vancouver at the time when I heard about the job opening up here at CRTV, and it caught my attention immediately. And I'd heard of CRTV in the business being, you know, one of its kind cable system owned by the people of Campbell River, unlike Rogers and Shaw and the other outfits that were going at the time. And it really, I liked community TV far, far better than working in the old commercial TV stations that I used to. It gave me a chance to actually work with people and help enable people to achieve the programming aspirations that they wanted to achieve.
Before I came to Campbell River, I was working doing commercials and documentaries in Vancouver. I loved the work, hated living in the city, was just tired of it. And one day I was reading the Vancouver Sun cover to cover, and I saw this job, my job as community producer they called it, and I knew right away it was my job. My duties around CRTV involve a little bit of everything. I do a little bit of editing, I do a little bit of shooting, I train volunteers how to shoot, how to edit, I encode things on the server. I have a lot to do with people. People call me up and they say, hey, I'd like to have a show, and I always like to say, yes, you can have a show, and we take it from there. There's a lot of public relations. It's a great job, and that every day I come, I don't know what's going to happen. Every day is different.
We can do stuff now that we only dreamed about in the old days. The old machinery, we used to have to use the 3/4 inch to 1/2 inch reel-to-reel machines to edit tape. You have to joggle a tape back and forth, maybe even cut it with scissors, you know, back in the days of film, Scotch tape. Now you do it electronically. You do it, Marjorie's expert at that. You take your video sequences and lay it down in a timeline on a computer, alter the audio, doctor up the video, and piece it together in the way that you want it to be seen and make it your own masterpiece. It's more efficient and more glitzy now.
I can be creative here. I love it here. And I also like to teach people how to edit, so they come and they join me here.
My job is to try and oversee the operation of the community programming department, the local origination department, which is just one department of CRTV, along with the technical end and the front office end and the information technology end. So I try and, as best I can, to keep the studio operating as smoothly as it can, and that includes going outside the studio and doing assignments on location. And it involves coordinating the activities of 2 full-time staff and 4 part-time students that work here, and all the volunteers that come to work on programs in the department here.
The studio would be a very sad, grim place without our volunteers. We rely on them for everything. We can run the studio at 10 a.m. thanks to, say, early retirees coming in to run a camera, and they love to run cameras. People that have never run a camera before, we can teach them here. Yeah, and even the shows are all run by volunteers. Whatever somebody's got an interest in, they can have their show here.
The people that make the shows create the stuff that you see on the local channel, right from planning to production to airing it. Volunteers is what it's all about.
My mom used to bring home the video camera from her job, and we'd play around with it, and I used to play around, and I had a lot of fun just shooting random things. So eventually I really got interested in media, and my dad suggested I come and become a volunteer at the studio. So he brought me up here, I met everyone, and I found it a lot of fun, and now I'm here.
I came to the studio, and I was delighted to find people that were really warm and welcoming and said, sure, volunteers, come on in. That's how we run. That's what we do. They invited me in, big smiles and open arms, and asked me if I'd like to take a camera out and check it out, read the instruction manual and make sure I understood it. And after doing that for a little bit, then they invited me to come along on some shoots just to run a camera. I was amazed. I was really, really amazed, and I had a lot of fun. And I haven't stopped having fun since then.
I realized that when I started volunteering at CRTV, after you finish filming a show or anything, you feel a great satisfaction that you can go home and you can say, I filmed that. That was me behind the camera. And then people will even come the next day. It's like, hey, I seen you on the credits. It's like, yeah, well, I volunteer at CRTV, and it's a cool thing to say too.
I've volunteered for pretty much my whole adult life, and I don't find any place quite as entertaining and as satisfying and as creative as volunteering here at CRTV.
My favorite type of show to do here at CRTV is not something that just takes place in one place, such as the studio. I like to get out there, get downtown, get in the community, get everyone involved. It just makes it more interesting for me, and it makes it more interesting for the viewer when they're watching the show on TV.
People who give their time and their effort to come and to learn the technology and to use the technology to perhaps highlight an issue of interest to them that they may also feel is an issue of interest to the community. There's broad, I guess, community support for that, and there's a lot of things that have come across on CRTV 10 that wouldn't have come across had those people not had that interest and that drive to inform the community about what they see as important issues.
I've found myself, after volunteering here, actually tuning in a lot more to CRTV and seeing a lot more of our community issues and understanding them more and taking part in them too.
It gives anyone who is interested the opportunity to have a soapbox, if you like, and essentially for years, since the beginning of CRTV almost, that soapbox has been there, and it's up to people in the community who wish to take advantage of it to do that. Certainly we're open for business.
I can't get enough of it. I just enjoy it so much.
But the bottom line is, it wouldn't be the same without volunteers. It would just be flat and boring and dull.
One of the things that CRTV has been able to do through the years, and the board of directors has encouraged us to do this, is that we not only encourage volunteers to come forward and work in the studio, but we also have provision for paying students, a small number of students, to come in during school term. They finish when they graduate, and we pay them above minimum wage to help with the operation of the studio and to help people create the programs that they want to create. And we've been able to get some pretty good students come through here, who might not perhaps have been able to access the technical skills and the equipment that we have here.
What's really good about that is we encourage them to come up with their own ideas and come up with their own programming ideas to try and keep the youth aspect in our programming. And I've always been impressed with what they come up with.
After volunteering here for a couple of years, I just became very involved with the studio, and a job position came up, and I took the opportunity, applied for it, and I'm now a part-time production assistant, which has really broadened what I can do here. I can now, produce my own shows, edit my own shows. I can get out there more, meet new people, meet more people than I could as a volunteer. It makes it a lot more exciting.
Some of them start out shorter than me when I meet them, and then when they leave, they're taller than me. And during that time, I've gotten to know them, and Although I've taught them some things, I actually end up learning a lot from the students.
As a production assistant, you work a couple times a week after school on the weekend, and you get to come into the studio and edit some shows, and you get to go out on a shoot if there's something interesting to go film. You just grab your tripod and your camera and you're off.
It's really neat to watch them grow up, and there are a few that we have right now. I can't wait to see what they do in the future. They're so special, they're so driven, so dedicated, and I don't know what they're going to do, and I can't wait to see what they do.
At CRTV, I haven't just learned how to build my technical skills such as editing, lighting, directing, and producing, but I've also learned how to build my people skills. I'm now able to talk better to people in the community. I recognize people in the community. I've learned how things work in the community, and it's just been really fulfilling for me.
I think some of the best memories I have of working at CRTV and working with the people who were here was every year we would, or Hugh or CRTV would hire students. Even one fellow, Gareth Dillistone, I still remember Gareth, who worked with us way back in 1980.
There's a gentleman that works at BCCTV, he's an editor, and he worked at CRTV as a student, and he does wonderful, wonderful work.
My name is Gareth Dillistone. I've been a video journalist with CTV News in Regina for the past 20 years, but I got my start in television during my high school days at CRTV in Campbell River. Hugh Smith hired me in 1980 as a production assistant for $2.50 an hour. Well, I rose quickly through the ranks and was soon promoted to senior production assistant, and my salary went up to $2.75 an hour. Now, not only did I have a blast working with Hugh and the other students on staff, I also learned how television worked. And when I arrived here in Regina to go to college, my CRTV experience was enough to get me hired on part-time at CTV within the month. And I've worked here full-time ever since. I've been to Vimy Ridge, Juno Beach, walked on the Great Wall of China. I've met royalty and rock stars, prime ministers and premiers. I can tell you what it feels like to sit in an ejection seat, pull 9 Gs, and weigh 1,500 pounds. But all this would not have been possible without my early start in the world of TV at CRTV. I worked on the program Let's Go Fishing with John Dawson. What a great job for a 17-year-old guy. Head out on the salt chuck every weekend for hours on end to shoot fishing segments. I probably shouldn't mention the cold beer that John would bring along for those grueling shoots.
Back in 1979, I think it was, a fellow by the name of Reg Pasterchuk, he came to me and said, hey, you want to do a fishing show on the local TV station? And I got back to him and I said, yeah, I said, I'd like to do that. We came down, we met Hugh Smith down at the CRTV studios and talked about what we thought we could do, and it just kind of grew from there.
Here's Dorky.
Back probably in the mid 80s, we probably had a following of some 10,000 people that would watch the show every week. As the show developed, it became a real community thing, that we were not only helping people fish, but we were showing people from Campbell River as well as tourists here from all over the world. On TV, some celebrities as well as just anybody coming out to do some fishing, and the community really embraced the show. They really, I have 25, 30-year-old guys come up to me today and say, you know, you taught me how to fish. I learned how to fish. I learned how to cut plug a herring, and I learned how to tie a slip knot, and I learned how to fly fish. And I think that's what gives me the most satisfaction today. And over the years, it just it became the place to be. It was Thursday night at 7 o'clock on Let's Go Fishing. I know that we helped promote the city of Campbell River through CRTV to not only locally on Vancouver Island, but to the entire world.
While entertaining its viewers and sharing fishing tips is important, CRTV has always strived to devote its resources to assist local non-profit groups in achieving their aims.
There's a pride of ownership here. I suspect that all of the people in the Rotary Club, for example, which use CRTV to promote their causes, are highly appreciative and recognize that CRTV serves this community in a unique way that might not happen the same with different ownership, with different direction.
The Rotary Club over 32 years has raised well over $1 million through the Rotary TV auction that happens annually.
CRTV has been one of our major sponsors since the beginning of the TV auction. And we are welcomed into the studio, into the entire building of CRTV.
Back in the old building, we used to have to clear off our desks because they would just come in and literally take over the office for the weekend. And a lot of things you never found again.
We have the access of the studio, the technicians, any personnel that we need, and we have the space. So it has been marvelous that we've had the kind of support that CRTV has done. We have raised in excess of $1.2 million.
That money has stayed in the community and has gone towards projects and charitable endeavors within the community.
For instance, if you drive down the Highway 19, you will see signs of Rotary all over the place. The Seawalk, which thousands of people use all the time. The Ken Ford ramp was a Rotary project. The 50th parallel, the pier, and the Centennial Pool we've been there 3 times. We've done the extension of different trails around Bakey Island and up to John Hart Trail. CRTV has been with us all those years. It has been a major contributor for the TV auction.
It's wonderful to be able to work with the local groups and local nonprofit agencies in a way that's beneficial to them and to the community as a whole.
I think that's really important because it's kind of nice to have a connected community. And it comes all together on those 2 days.
I'm very, very blessed and honored to be able to do Paws for Pets, and especially to go into our 7th year. I feel as an individual in the community that it's an absolute honor to be able to come before the public every single week. I have little children that say, could I please come on your show? They want to come on the show because they love the animals. How do they know to love the animals? Because they watch CRTV. So many people will be in their homes, they'll have their TV on, Paws for Pets will come on, and of course the intro to Paws for Pets catches your attention instantly. Justin has done such a good job of that intro that you stop what you're doing and you think, oh, Paws for Pets is on. And then they'll sit down, and maybe they won't sit and watch the entire program, but they'll hear the dogs barking or a cat meowing or something, and they'll turn their attention to it. Hey, that's a nice looking cat. Gee, I would really like to have a cat like that. Oh, I didn't realize they had animals quite that nice up at the SPCA. They then will say, come on, Harold, come and have a look at this. You know, look at this cat. Oh, please, could we go and get him? No, we're not having another animal. They're just a pain in the neck. Oh, but look at how cute it is. And oh, wouldn't it be nice when you're away on business if I had some company? And oh, it's fine, go get the cat. Whereas normally they would not have even entered into their mind, but the minute we bring them on TV, people see them and they get adopted. And I really think that's a powerful message, a really powerful message, is that TV works. Now, Bo was a beautiful dog that we had in our kennels for a very long period of time, and a lovely family has adopted him. And I was going into Thrifty's the other day, and Bo's owner said, oh, I have Bo in the car, would you like to see him? And you should see him sitting in the back of the car like the proudest dog ever. He's so loved, and he's so blessed that someone fell in love with him and adopted him. It is a wonderful thing to do, to give one of these orphans a chance, a second chance, to, you know, to be out there and be in a family, and they will love you so unconditionally. You'll wonder why it took you so long to get another dog. We're really grateful that CRTV has given us that opportunity for many years to bring those animals into people's lives.
One of the programs that I really enjoy doing, and I offer my assistance in regard to this every year, and that is the Relay for Life. And it's absolutely fascinating to be there right from the beginning. And it usually starts at 7 p.m. On a Friday evening, and it goes through until 7 a.m. the next morning. And you're there right through the night. You start as you see people coming in, lugging in all their equipment, setting up their tents, and you see all the activities. You're able to interview, get real intimate interviews with people who've been involved in cancer. And you go right through the night with all the activities, all the music, that goes on. And then you end off with that final march right around the track at Phoenix. And it's always so interesting to be there right through the night in a program like that. And a lot of people, I know people enjoy that program, and I enjoy doing that program.
CRTV takes pride in giving a voice to local groups and assisting with charitable causes. The community channel shines a light on the everyday events and issues that make Campbell River such a wonderful place to live. Keeping the community entertained, informed, and involved is what the community channel is all about.
As a matter of fact, we earmark a larger percentage of our budget than any other cable company in Canada to local origination. And you can tell that from the quality of the programming that you see on our Cable 10.
Well, I think one of the things, I like Channel 10. We get to hear a lot of historical things from a lot of people, and they discuss a lot of current events.
CRTV has always been near the cutting edge of the technology, and certainly in terms of local origination. Man, it's way ahead of any other community in British Columbia that I've been in, and many others across Canada.
And when you got into local programming, it provided a real interest as to what was happening in one's community. So television and CRTV has been just a very important link in Campbell River.
I think the fact that we show so much of the local things that we are interested in, I don't think it would have been Shaw or Rogers or whoever I don't think we would have had access to that amount of knowledge from what's going on in our town.
Cable 10 is really I think it's a well-watched channel. I don't know that people sit and watch it for hours, but they always make sure it's almost like they check in and see what's happening. And it's something that's unique to us. We're the only ones that have it.
CRTV means a lot of community involvement. It means being able to sit at home and enjoy what's going on in your community. I find it so interesting daily, every single day. I click on to Channel 10 to see what's happening in my community. Believe me, I've learned how to cook from it. My husband might contest to that, but I've loved the programming.
We undertook the beginnings of a community service channel to bring to the community what's going on, and I think that has proved its worth. It's always amazing how many people comment that they watch programs on Channel 10.
It is nice to turn on Channel 10 and see local people from the community doing a show, even something as off the wall as You Can't Be Serious, where people are just sitting around and chatting about whatever comes to mind.
Well, it's real TV. I mean, I think it's TV the way TV started out to be before it was all sanitized and cleaned up and made to try and capture the largest demographic. And I think that in that respect, we kind of go back to the way TV used to be, and that we present the issues and we present them in far more depth on Cable 10 than other organizations could do, because they have to service sponsors and they have to cover a certain amount of information, and they're always competing for eyeballs. you know, against other networks, and one of the things about CRTV is that it's unique. There's nothing else like it. And so if you do want to find out what's going on, turn on Channel 10, and everybody knows that.
I like what you're doing with your local programming, by the way. I watched a bit of it this morning. Yeah. And you've got the human element there, which is good.
And I really feel that it's important for people to see, oh, I didn't make it there, but I could watch it on Channel 10. And then perhaps next year they will come out and attend the event because CRTV did such a good job of presenting, you know, what goes on in the city of Campbell River.
I do watch CRTV 10. Everything's first class that comes out of here, I must say.
You know, people talk to me and say, well, they'll tell me that they've seen stuff on Cable 10, and it's kind of neat to hear that, you know.
Oh, I think Channel 10 is excellent with local programming. Really good. I watch it quite a bit. Yeah, I do.
Well, I'm delighted that it's still operating well and prospering and continues to provide a good service to the community. I think that's tremendous.
When it comes to local issues, there's no better way to stay abreast of what's happening in Campbell River. And unlike the big TV and cable stations, our local program hosts are not limited to the 7-second soundbite. They can devote time to allow people to speak and get to the grist of local stories, with no commercials and no control by advertisers.
Processes underway involving the judiciary difference. I think we all would.
Well, I said very clearly to Gordon Campbell, you had some affordable, some rental market interest there. We have a fixed connection.
Your federal counterpart.
I was the MLA here for years and years and years. Quite taken aback about
But CRTV is more than just local events on the community channel. TV viewers wouldn't be able to enjoy any of it without the latest technology to deliver it to their homes. There's many exciting new developments on the horizon, including faster internet, HD TV, advanced telecommunications, and who knows what. You've seen how far we've come in 50 years. What's in store for the next 50?
I remember when I was first hired, their objective, the board's objective, was, hey, we need somebody to bring this system into the 21st century. And they wanted to go from that 22-channel snowflake system to something that was leading edge. Cable is being offered in Campbell River in one form, and the most interesting aspect is we've only been into the digital cable business for 3-4 years now and just offering it. And what's jumping sort of ahead and pushing into the marketplace and has been for the last year or so is high definition TV. HD TV is, you know, people keep saying it's in the distant future and so on. I'm sorry, but it's here today. It's here to stay. Every digital customer that's connecting up now, you know, and going forward is simply asking for high definition cable boxes.
High definition television is, I mean, it's fantastic. The quality, when you look at a high definition television channel right next to an analog channel, you know, a regular channel, it's night and day. It's almost like three-dimensional. It's really cool, actually. We have 2 TVs in the admin side of CRTV, and it's really interesting to see people's reactions when they come in. You know, they look at the high definition and then they look at the regular channel and their eyes kind of, you know, switch back and forth.
HD TV is the future of programming, and that's the way the vast majority of our customers are going to receive their services. In the next 3 to 5 years, broadcasters in the U.S. are going to be forced into moving into the HD environment or in digital environment and broadcasting in that. And consumers are going to demand that quality of programming coming down. And there's going to be more and more of it as we access. And you know, and again, you know, the reason why television sets are being sold en masse as they are, HD television set, is simply people go in, they walk into a Sony or Sony store or a Magnavox store, and they see this quality and this sound, and it just knocks their socks off, and they just come to the conclusion, I've got to have that, just got to have that. You know, this past Christmas was sales in HD TV, which is phenomenal in the industry. And that's going to generate more and more programming. And as more and more people connect and get the larger screen television sets and replace those old big tubey things, you know, and go to those flat screens, we're going to get more and more product out there. I think the focus on the future is really, well, the future is the internet. The question is whether or not consumers have a grasp of it and start to understand it. In fact, now in our 50th year, replacing some of our equipment that we've had and working for the last 5-7 years, and putting in state-of-the-art stuff that is going to be capable of far faster speeds than we're presently offering to our high-speed internet customers. It is going to be 100, maybe a 200 megabyte highway in the future, in the very near future.
So where we are right now is the head end, not to be confused with the front end, where all the administrative tasks and reception takes place. The head end has all the equipment that we need for putting channels on your television, so whether they be digital or analog channels. We have the equipment that we need for the cable modems, so where all your cable modems connect to is the head end, basically. And as well, we have other equipment from the different internet service providers, and the fiber to all the schools within the school district. Fiber optics is it's very exciting, actually. The more fiber we can put in, the better off we are, the better off the average consumer is. Higher internet speeds, better quality picture, more services, the whole gamut of things. I mean, the closer we can get to the house, to the average person's house with fiber, the better off everybody is. One of the new projects that I'm working on right now, or that we're working on right now, is wireless internet within Campbell River. It's fairly new to the market in general. There's only a few communities that actually have done it.
In different parts of the world today, Wi-Fi internet services of 120 television channels, plus cellular phone, plus excuse me, Wi-Fi interconnection, are all available. Only in North America is the hardwired infrastructure still being used in many ways. But gradually what's happening is that Wi-Fi, the wireless world is taking over, and taking over very quickly. So we've got to be there.
What we're going to be doing is putting, they're called hotspots basically. We hang those off the telephone poles and, you know, around town and whatnot. And what it will mean is that anywhere within Campbell River, you'll have internet access, wireless internet access. It's very cool. We're at the first stages of it. We've actually got 2 sort of test spots, one up near the hospital, one near Tai Plaza, with the intent that this year what we're going to do is cover off the major areas of town, the major corridors, stuff like that, and then eventually extend it out, hopefully to the municipal boundaries. That's it's a big project, but in the end, I think it'll be pretty cool.
It's moving along very quickly now, and that's the big worry for CRTV, I think, more than anything else, is the constant change that's out there and meeting that demand as we go forward.
So in the near future, we're going to be adding the services of video on demand and IPTV to our network, to our other services.
And it's just exploding today. It's increasing, 40-50% every year. It's just going through the roof. I can see it getting to the point where people, television will be viewed on the internet on an ongoing basis, and there'll be thousands of channels available. So CRTV has to get to the point that we are not only the fastest and the most reliable in the quality service, but we've got the greatest bandwidth out there to offer the consumer.
Video on demand basically is it's much like pay-per-view. You decide what movie you want to watch, when you want to watch it. You don't have to wait for that sort of time slot. You watch it when you want. Internet television is slightly different. Basically, it's television that you can watch on your computer, on your cell phone, anything like that, anything that has access to the internet.
Well, CRTV in 5 or 10 years, heck, CRTV in a year from now is going to be quite different than it was last year. It's simply because of change and technology. It's moving again so quickly, And we're embracing things like Skype, for example.
Skype it's a telephone service that operates over the internet. So if you've heard of things like voice over IP, digital telephone, things like that, Skype is another variant of that. It's really easy to use, very intuitive. It's a little program you download to your computer. They've also got these, they're called Skype phones, basically. They're a little computer and that's all they run is just Skype.
But the nice side about a service like that we may we're using generally in the office now, and we're moving towards, is simply that your long distance is 2 cents in North America, and if you go Skype to Skype, it's all free. So telephone, conceptually, with high-speed internet is changing considerably. So you can see what's happening. The internet itself is starting to be used by consumers, and I think as time goes on, it is happening. More and more of our customers are accessing and using the internet for the vehicle that it's meant for, whether it be entertainment, information, or communication. It's all there. The joy to me at working at CRTV is really seeing the results of change. When you go from, the terminology is a snowflake system, when things are, sort of working, sort of there, on and off and all the rest, to a system that is reliable 99.9% of the time. That's a goal, that's an objective, but at the same time, when that happens, when the quality of service gets to that point, when people are complaining because a channel is a little grainy and you are offering 63 of them and the audio's out a little bit, you sort of smile. Especially when in '94 I came on board and there were 22 channels of snowy, grainy channels, and maybe they were there, maybe they weren't, and that was the way it was. So today's world is, that makes me smile. That makes my heart feel good. The other side of it too is to be able to stand out front and sort of say, we're as good as the big guys. In fact, we're better because we offer more basic cable services. Our rates are lower. So when I get together with other cable operators, they don't like to talk to me too much, because I'm standing there with a flag up in the air and it's waving and saying, hey, look at our price tag. Hey, look at all the services we offer. Why can't you guys do this? And of course, the CRTC is on the one side saying, attaboy,
It's your TV.
It's my TV and it's your TV,
It's your TV.
Campbell River, it is your TV.
It's your TV.
It's still your TV after 50 long years, and they've gone by so quickly.